Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world today. I'd like to welcome you to our Location Intelligence Services webinar called How to Solve Your Location-Aware Content Challenges. My name is Caroline Bombard. I'm the head of marketing at GeoJunxion, and I'll be your moderator today. I'd like to introduce our two panelists for this webinar. Thierry, Jaccoud, our CEO, and Brittany, Beagle, our senior data analyst.
Good morning.
Before we start, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping rules. You'll be automatically muted upon entry, but you can ask questions in the chat at any time, and we'll address those during the Q&A sessions at the end of the webinar. And you will receive a copy of the slides and the recording. So now over to you, Thierry, and for everyone, I'd like you to enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Yeah, we're going to go through our webinar this time. As all our webinars, about 20 minutes in total. So really to the point, a short intro. We're going to give you also a short info about GeoJunxion and some really practical examples to visualize what we do and the summary. And then we have a Q&A session, as mentioned by Caroline. So yeah, GeoJunxion is pretty much a new brand that we have launched last year in October. It's been growing out of a company called E&D International, E&D Products, which some of you may know. And really, for us, we're leveraging more than 25 years of experience in really location-aware content, like mapping and software. We obviously keep our outstanding customer satisfaction. We do have customers that have been with us more than 20 years now, and focusing on really high-quality products and a very mature, cost and effective production process, which we are going to talk about today. And our focus really moving towards high-value dynamic content that promotes safety and sustainability, and which being the center points where location and intelligence meets. It's where we come to the idea to call us the GeoJunxion. Moving on, who we are. That's just an overview, I would say, of the leadership team. We are a publicly traded company. Means also that we have a supervisory board. As you can see in the brands here, we have a mix of people are really experienced in the mapping and location industry and finances. Myself, have a long history in automotive and also mapping, along with a CFO who comes also from a technology background. And in the operating core team here, we also have a good mix of people that have been with us for more than 20 years, and a mix of new people. As you can see, the brands and logos here, you see a lot of us really in the mapping industry. And I'm also really happy to see that Brittany is a GIS expert and has his map in her mind. So where are we? Our location here is where I'm right now in our head office in Capelle aan de IJssel, which is near Rotterdam. And we have sales offices in Germany, Wiesbaden for the DACH region, Southern Europe in Italy, and Americas and Tampa, Florida. And we also have a production that is now outsourced, but it's been there since 1999, creating, along with our directions here in the Netherlands, creating, outstanding location content in Pune, India. Yeah, moving on, what are we doing? Well, the basic of everything we do as a location company is digital mapping. Been doing this for a really long time now, a global digital map that we have been creating and fostering the last 20 plus years. Really, the key focus of this is rather for route planning and display, which based on that, we created the geolocation APIs, like a geocode and time zones, enabling really to access this content for different use cases, and also geoplanning APIs, such as time distance metric for typical logistic and resource planning. On top of that, basic location content, we're creating what we call the premium location content, which here is shown is what we call the highlight zones family, which is a really focused map agnostic content for different use case. On the left side, you will see the safety alert zones, which is really focused on enabling application to alert mobility users and pedestrians about safety issues upcoming, like road safety, for example, accident-prone areas. In the middle, you see what we call the eco-alert zones, which is all about regulated, restricted areas of mobility, such as congestion zones and emission zones. I think we all know that pretty much we have now really reached the world coverage on this one, beginning of this year. And on the right side, you see the newest of the family, if you like, the health alert zones, which is all about areas that have a high risk of personal health, such as now the COVID-19 is one of the issues that we are all aware of, but going beyond that. So that's the premium content. And moving on to what we're going to talk about today, which is location intelligence services. It's pretty much offering the know-how of a mapper, if you like, and a location content maker as a service. And so we will go into details, and Brittany will show examples, but you see that, offering research and evaluation of location content up to really creating location-enabled content, which we're gonna show and demonstrate today, and all the way up to creating a bespoke interactive map for outdoor venues, sort of the last mile map in the outdoor venue. So, well, that's for the overview, and I hand over to Brittany, our GIS expert, who is going to give you a couple of a real practical example on how we do that. And to you, Brittany.
Yes, thank you, Thierry. So I'm going to go through two practical examples of previous customer requests we have applied this location intelligence to. So our first example is based on a customer request, and it's basically making sense of 20 different territory data sets. So a request came in to review source data, which was territories data. And territories data can be a point, a polygon, basically with corresponding geometries to attributes, including names, populations, and codes. And then these then correspond to the country's hierarchy. So country level, and then province level, and regions, or depending on the country. Every country is slightly different. So then also the request is to prepare the data for ingestion into a specific model. So to kind of standardize the data so that the customer could ingest the data smoothly into their model. Then we're also tasked with identifying any issues in the source data, whether there's any positional inaccuracy, data gaps, or anything overlapping. And then the end result is to deliver a full data set of this conformed data that follows this request. So this slide here kind of is a bit of a flow chart of what our overall process is. So with any process like this, we use our internal or sometimes external country knowledge. So in-house, we have quite an international team. So often we have the knowledge in-house, or we've also done a lot of projects like this. So often we've done, so this particular project was for Ireland, and we had done previous projects for Ireland. So we already had a lot of the information in-house, but for the information that we didn't, that required extra research. So kind of our first step is we receive the data, and then we do some initial analysis on the data, as well as specific research of the country that it pertains to. So most of these steps in this process here actually occur simultaneously. So once we have the data and do a little bit of our analysis, we ingest the data. And that always isn't necessarily a simple process, because every data set is slightly different. So then we have to standardize it in order to just simply ingest it. Then also what we'll do is we'll flatten the data so that we put the data into a standardized data set. So that means we can store all of the data in one or few tables, so that instead of having 20 different data sets, you maybe have 1 to 5, just to conform it, and because often each data set has a little bit of this territory and a little bit of that, and then you have to grab information from every data set in order to standardize it into one table. And that's where the mapping data comes up. So what we do is we take the data from each data set and analyze it, and to see which attribute from this table matches our final format. So it could be that we need to squish the attribute from 5 different tables in order to fulfill just one attribute in our final format. So that's where the mappings comes in. We'll write some code to squish all those attributes together and standardize the format. So, and that's something that the mapping was requested a specific format by the customer, and that's something we can we can make any format essentially. And then from that is a data output, is just after all of the source data goes through this process, we get data. And that data is standardized and should eliminate any data gaps as well as any data overlaps. Also, what we create from the mappings data is a relationship model. So this model shows how each data set and what's coming from where to make it the final product. And all of this would then be summarized in a final report, including the country overview of how territories line up in the country, how each thing is broken down, what municipalities and authorities are responsible for what, and as well as this source analysis. Perfect. So then we get a result. So the result is our ingestion code. So the code required to just get the data into our data set. And then the relationship model. So here is an overview of, for this particular project, what our relationship model looked like. So you can see there's a lot of different lines going from here, there, and everywhere. Because we had so many data sets for this project that we had to grab a little bit of this attribute and then add it to this just for the name in some cases. So in this case, the source data was quite messy, and we were able to make it into a nice standardized overview so that the customer can just take the data, run our code, and smoothly import the sources into their maps. So then also included in the results is the flattening code required or used to flatten all of the data into simple tables, as well as the mappings tables explaining the code and the information needed for the flattening, as well as the output data if required. Not always the output data, sometimes just the processes are required.
Was a real location puzzle, right, Brittany?
It was quite a puzzle, yes. We spent quite some time, yes. With also for this project, we had quite some contact with the data source suppliers themselves, just trying to understand the messiness of their data.
Yeah, very good, very good.
So moving on to example 2. Example 2 was completing a complete data set of passenger car ferries. So the request for this project was to create a complete data set, and this data set involved all passenger car ferries for a specific country. So also part of the request was to standardize the data set with specific attributes, and as well as then deliver the location-enabled database. So our process. So the first step of the process is to find a ferry. How do we find a ferry? We use that using either a manual open search or an automated process. So a manual search is gathering information from the web, the internet, and or tourism agencies and local authorities to help us locate the presence of a ferry. We also have, we created an in-house automated process, and this process looks for water crossings and then determines if there is a ferry there or not. So once we've located a ferry, we then gather all the information based on what the customer requires. So whether we need to find the ferry name, the ferry times, that kind of stuff. So that's the information we would then gather. Also, what we gather then is actually the location, the specific location of each ferry point. And this location was determined based on the customer request and a series of rules, whether it's the ferry terminal or the actual dock where the ferry comes to. So that was all determined in discussions with our customer. And in order to locate these ports, we use satellite geometry, and as well as this is where the local knowledge came into play, is to exactly find the specific location of each port. Then what we do is we verify this information from local authorities, as well as often we verify the information straight with the ferry operator themselves.
So local language is needed, right? I mean,
yes, often local language is needed because we're on the phone talking with the ferry operators, and certain people are okay with, or certain people speak English and certain countries don't. So yeah, often we have to leverage our international team in-house and use our language knowledge. Yes, so once we have all the information, then we standardize the data for the data sets. So everything gets formatted in a specific way as requested. And the output is a complete data set of all operational ferries. So for this data set, we included ferry lines that were routable for cars, bikes, motorbikes, and pedestrians. So for our data set here, it includes a name, the alternate name of the port, the coordinates of each port, as well as the ferry line name and website. We also have the information of the operational status. So often if it's more a tourist area, a ferry might be seasonal. And we also obtain information whether the ferry is suspended right now due to maintenance or other factors. I know currently we've been running into the situation that a lot of ferries are suspended due to COVID, just because nobody's traveling right now. So a lot of ferries are not operating on certain more touristy areas. So here you can see an image of just some of our ferry locations that we have here in Italy. And as well as the text at the bottom is a small excerpt from our data set with the country code, the port A name, and then the port A alternate name and the coordinates and so on. And
very nice example, Brittany. Yeah, thank
you.
Overview.
You're welcome.
I think it's always difficult to really present services, but in general, I think this slide is summarizing how we do it. On the left side, you will see a customer comes with a request. Typically, we start sourcing, finding the best relevant sources, including open source. That's also part of what we do. Then obviously do a source quality check before we ingest or work on that source. And many times we create, as you mentioned, Brittany, with the ferries, we really create purely new data set as there were nowhere available that type of quality source, right? I remember also that countries like Portugal and things that really language specific and very specific requirements. So that's where we create and enrich with local knowledge. So one of the beauty of being here in Rotterdam, so we have access very easily to multi-language talents, and also now thanks to sort of mobile working technologies, which everyone of us know now, we also have the ability to get someone working for us in Italy or wherever. Then all this is using our standard operating procedures and then a production process, and obviously inline quality assurance to make sure that the content we deliver is authoritative and qualitative, which then in the end it ends up to being stored in a database, or in some cases also we have delivered directly APIs so that the content can be accessed to it. And again, it's a flexible service, means that some of our customers come already with content, as you mentioned, Brittany, for the territory information. So they already had the content source, but they couldn't make really sense of it. But or better say, there was conflicting information in this database, right? So really, we get that content. Make the quality process that Brittany explained with all the steps, and very often also give a feedback to the customer on this quality of the data, which also is very helpful in terms of improving your sourcing efforts. And then it goes to the normal steps, which in some cases also we've been asked to keep that updated, because like the ferries, I mean, this is, as you say, Brittany, it's it's always changing every day almost now in the COVID situation, and there was summer and winter times. As a result, we're also asked to update it, and this is what we also offer as a service. Yeah, so in summary, I know we're pretty much in time, so I'm quite happy about that. We're really leveraging 25 plus years of experience of creating this kind of global location-enabled content. As I say, you can trust on us having a very mature and quality inline processes. Really, we live and breathe with location content and GIS. And so giving that as a summary, the extensive portfolio we have, from basically helping in sourcing to creating the content, to enriching content, to do the quality checks, and to deliver also a service as API and continuous updating, as well as I said, and this sort of service location intelligence, we offer also what we call outdoor venue plans, where we can create it even customize outdoor venues maps for customers. It's been developing very recently. That's it from a summary standpoint, and we already come to a Q&A session, so very good. I think we're sort of good in time. So Caroline, this was a quick summary, so already have questions.
Brittany. Yeah, thank you very much, Thierry. Thank you, Brittany, for a very informative presentation. I do have a couple of questions in the chat box. The first one, I think it would be directed towards Brittany, is are you limited by country coverage in your research and projects?
No, I would say not. Specifically, as I mentioned before, we have quite an international team. So we try to use the knowledge that we have within our team, as well as we have great context to local knowledge, as well as we have previous projects that we've done for specific countries. So we always try to jump from the knowledge that we already have in-house and then go towards more local knowledge. For instance, we have a couple projects coming up for Hong Kong and Palestine. And for those, we will be using some local knowledge in-house, as well as specific locals from those areas.
Okay. Next question. Yeah, next question I can see is maybe directed towards Thierry. Is the ferry data available for purchase? Oh,
good questions. Yeah, I think it depends. We have a different type of licensing. Sometimes the service are just for the specific customers who want to use it exclusively, and in this case we'll have to look at the countries, but I think we can also resell the content we have created. So we have the right to relicense this content, which is something that we do quite often if it fits our purpose, as instead of it's a cost sharing plan, let's say, model, where enable us to create outstanding and authoritative content. So yeah, talk to us, talk to the sales team. If you're interested, we're more than happy to discuss this ferries line that is really up to date. I think we mainly did a European country, right, Brittany, right now? And it's really a data set that we haven't found anywhere as consistent and as up to date. So we're more than happy to talk to companies that has navigation application, this kind of thing.
Okay, thank you very much for this very thorough answer. The next question, I think once again, maybe geared more towards Brittany, is what kind of tools did you use for your data analysis from show examples?
Yeah, so as is with every project, the tools sometimes develop as we're creating the project. And yeah, every project has its own tools that are needed. But generally what we use are, we do most of our coding in SQL and Python, but as requests, we could use something else like C++. And also we find just Excel is an awesome tool. So for instance, for the mappings I explained earlier, we would provide a table in Excel with all of the code in that as well.
Okay, and
I think as you explained in Brittany, there's also some specific tool we have created for, like you said, the ferries to match locations.
Yeah, so often each project needs its own specific automated process and tool that we generate here in-house using our developers.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Any more question?
Yeah, the last one was more geared towards, I think, yet again, Brittany, what type of quality check do you apply to the data that you found in your search?
So most of what our quality checks entail is is contact. That's where our contact with the locals really comes into play, is that often we hire the locals to help us confirm the locations. Sometimes a satellite geometry is enough to confirm a location of something. And then if it's information, we want to make sure that we're getting it from indeed the exact source and not just some random website from the internet. So we're always verifying at least with local authorities, and as well on our side as well, and triple checking that everything is as accurate as possible.
And I think we use, I think most of the time you say so 100% check what you talk about, and sometimes also statistical method, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Depends on what is the quality level requested, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Hope that answered the questions.
Yes, that is. I have a new one actually, in terms of, once again, relating to coverage. And either do you provide European and world maps?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Should I go, Brittany? But you know as well, so that's
sure. Go for it.
Yes, for sure. Our digital maps is covering the world, technically 100+ countries, which say we have a focus on updating the European and North American maps in terms of freshness. That are certainly the freshest map that we have. I talk to our team and we can help you there. And obviously it's proprietary content, which we have the license on.
I don't see any more questions. So I think we'll wrap up for today. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Thierry. Thank you, Brittany, for a great presentation. And I wish everyone a very nice day, and you'll be receiving a copy of the presentation via email. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Caroline and Brittany.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.